Hi, my name is Gil Robs, and I'm a race director for CanLake 50 Ultras and Mini Can 25K. CanLake Ultras is an ultra marathon that goes around the Canandaigua Lake that offers three different distances: 50 miles, 50K, and 25K distances. Uh, and today I invited 50K winners from a 2020 race. Amy, Amy and John. Um, look at the numbers. So Amy Trabert completed 50K distance at time 44 hours, 15 minutes, and 21 seconds, which is a new course record by 7 seconds. Previous course record was set up in 2012, so 10 years from now, 10 years later, course record is beaten. John came in second overall male winner with a time of 4 hours and 20 minutes and 13 seconds. So welcome, guys. So I'd like to hear about your experience at the CanLake Ultras. How was your race? How did you get to the FLCC? How was your preparation? What's your strategy? So basically give us your race report during this meeting. Amy, I'll start with you and then John. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, so I think going into the race, I am going to do the Tunnel Hill 50 miler in November. So I wanted to kind of do a nice, like, smaller ultra before that to kind of get prepared for the one that I'm doing in November. So I signed up for the CanLake 50, and I had an Achilles injury actually over the summer, so I didn't start training until really August. And this was actually my first ultra race that I've ever done. I previously had ran 40 miles before, an FKT in the Niagara Gorge Trail, but I've never done an official ultra race. So that was just kind of for fun. So this was the first time that I was in the ultra scene. I'd done marathons before, but this was my first 50K.
All right. How was your overall? When you get to the starting line, how were you feeling? Were you nervous? What was your plan? What was your plan for food, drinks, and everything else? Pace?
Yeah, so I've noticed that if I get super nervous, I don't do well. So I was very, very relaxed. I just thought it was going to be fun no matter what happened. So I was really relaxed. My husband had dropped me off. And so in terms of food, I do pretty well with fuel. I'm able to get in a good amount of calories before the race, and then I read ahead of time what the ultra would have, and it was perfect, right up my alley. And I saw peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and I love that. So at that point was pretty prepared. I had a bagel and a banana and a coffee, and some jelly beans before the race. And then I knew that probably around half half marathon, 13 miles, that I was gonna start and stop at every single station that I went to.
Mhm. So did you have a crew? Did you have pacer afterwards, or just how did you, or were you on your own since start to land?
No, so John ran with me basically almost all of the race, I would say, until I don't know where we kind of split off. Was that at
It
the
was
hill
right that there was
almost?
that last really big hill, and you just kept going up it, and I, kind of watched you get a little further away and further away and further away. But yeah, it was right up until I think that was around like mile 20.
Yeah, we were together most of the race, and you were, even when you were behind me, you were so close. But I was really happy that John was there because I was kind of scared that I was going to be alone, and I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, not that I didn't know what I was doing, but it was my first ultra, so I was still trying to figure things out. And so I was really glad that John was there. to really be with me most of the time, and he kept me like on pace and really kept me in it moving forward.
Mhm. Did you have any peaks and valleys during the race? Because in all outdoors which I have done, it's probably I crashed at least once, and not if not more. But how
Yeah.
about you?
So I definitely had highs and lows. In the beginning, I was like, wow, this is so fun. This is so easy. Then probably around, honestly, that first hill, I was like, oh boy, can I do this for like 11 more miles? And then you just like, the negative thoughts get into your head where you're just like, why am I doing this? Like, nobody else does this. Like, why am I doing this for fun? And yeah, I had a lot of highs and lows, but I noticed that once I started stopping at every station to get like energy and fuel, I felt so much better. So I just kept saying like, just keep going to make it to the next station. And that was my goal the whole time, is just make it to the next station. And I wanted to be able to like basically stop at the station, but be able to run the whole race and not walk. And that was kind of one of my big goals as well.
So you never walked, you just ran the entire race, I was saying?
No, I mean, I ran the entire race, but I stopped at each station. So like I physically stopped at each
Mhm.
station, drank something, ate something, let it like kind of just get in my stomach, and then I just took off again. So
Mhm.
during the race, no, I never during the race walked.
Were you aware of your pace during the race, or were you just going by the feel?
At first I was going by pace, and then when we hit like the wind and then all those hills, I was like, oh, it does, like I'm not gonna even look at my watch because it's gonna be really disappointing. So towards the end of the race, I wasn't really looking at it at all. And then probably the last mile is when I really started looking at it, because I was like, I think I'm pretty close to the record. And I'm like, maybe I can pick it up. So I started to pick it up towards the end, in hopes that I could kind of just squeeze into the record.
Yeah. So that was my next question. Were you aware of the record? And the answer is you were aware of the record. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I was aware of the record. I didn't think I'd be even close to it. Actually, my goal was to go under 4:30. Just anything like if I got 4:29:59, I would have been happy with it. That was just my goal, is to get under 4:30. But then when I saw it was a possibility, I'm like, I'm just gonna go for it.
Mhm. All right, John, how about you? How was your preparation? What was your plan and pace and food?
Okay. So my preparation was I've been kind of just running the same as I was running right before I did, Mind the Ducks and Candlelight. So my mileage hasn't been all that high, but I've been, keeping fairly consistent throughout. And this has been a race that's been on my radar to do for a while. It's one I've wanted to do. So I'm familiar with the area. I love the area. As a kid, we used to always, we'd go down and visit my father had a friend or an army friend who lived down in Danville. So we'd always go down through Naples and out that way and all. And it was always very beautiful. So it was always something that was on my radar to do. So in terms of what the race actually ended up being, it was pretty much everything I expected and a lot more, from the start, from the boat launch, it was a very beautiful area to be in. And it was actually a very nice day. And, I love going around that area, and it's right at the beginning of fall too. So it was just amazing. It was, and I appreciate that, what Amy said, and it was actually very nice that, that she was there. She kept me on pace and actually probably kept me going a little bit more than I probably would have pushed myself. I remember we talked a few times during the race, and I was hoping to just finish it in under 4.5 hours or at 4.5 hours. And actually, she ended up pushing me to where I came in at 4:20, which is a lot faster than I expected to do. I knew it was going to be hilly, and it did live up to that. That was that first hill, major hill coming out of Middlesex is definitely, it keeps going and going and going. And that was probably the only time during the day that I had Amy behind me, and for a little bit I didn't see her, and I was hoping that she was okay, and was wondering, and I was like, oh, is she all right, or is the hill? But she caught me quick enough once we got to the top of the hill, and she's an incredible runner. I mean, I have to say that, you know, she just kept moving along the whole day. And then once we got to that second hill, like I said, you know, I started up the hill and then she kind of kept going and my pace kind of dropped off on there. And that was one of the 2 times during the day that I did walk a little bit during it. But it was still, it was an amazing experience. You know, it was a fun race to do, a very beautiful and scenic race. And it's one I definitely look forward to doing again.
Okay. So Amy seemed, for them heard from Amy, she was planning just to stop at the aid stations and have food there. How about you? Did you have the same plan, or did you carry something with you?
I carried some of the energy gels with me, and I actually twice during the race I had dropped the packet out of the race vest. It was the first time I've done a road race with a race vest, and you know there's a little bit of a learning curve there too. Even when you get old like me, you still, you know, you've got things that you learn every time you do a race, and that was, you know, the pouch came right out, but I still had extras on me. So at the aid stations, I didn't do too much food at the beginning. Is that at first it was just taking in liquids. It was the later aid stations where I was taking in, you know, little niblets of food here and there just to kind of get through. And it was enough to get me through. I mean, it's always one thing when I go into a race, you never can quite tell what you're going to crave and what you're going to find repulsive during a certain point in a race. There's certain times where, you know, 10 miles in, the thought of eating pickles is repulsive. And then by the time you get towards the end of the race, you're chowing down 3 or 4 of them because you're looking for salt and it tastes good. And that was pretty much how my strategy was. It was kind of, I think some people refer to it as a seafood strategy. I just seafood and, oh, this seems good. Okay. So, I know when I got to the aid station, probably about 25 miles in, you know, the very nice person, the volunteer who was there. I wish I knew the volunteers' names because at every aid station they were so nice and so friendly. But you know, she was making suggestions like, "Oh, you look like you've lost some salt. You should try this and this." And you know, she was spot on. You know, it took a minute or two for it to kick in, but I felt a lot better afterwards. So that's one of the things that these races, the aid stations have a little bit of everything. You know, Swedish fish and pickles right next to each other, and you can't beat that. So.
Mm-hmm. I think the volunteer that you're referencing was the Kristen Heyer. She is a former 50-mile winner as well. So she comes and she have won few outers in the area as well. So
yeah, you could definitely tell she knew, you know, could recognize things in people and runners, and she, you know, that was amazing, and I was very appreciated. So if she watches this, I'll say thank you, you know,
yeah.
And to all the other people at the aid stations too. They were amazing.
Yep, I'll let her
The aid
know.
stations were awesome. That was the best race I've been to with the aid stations, where they had so many options. The people were super nice, friendly. Everybody was like, "What do you need?" And so I was like, "Pretzels, I need pretzels," because that just sounded good. And they're throwing pretzels at me. And same with like every station, you know, I was craving like that peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I grabbed it and I was like, they're like, "Oh, we can get it for you." And it was one of the best races where like the stations were just perfect. And I think it was perfectly executed.
Mhm. Well, thanks for that. I'm certainly lucky that the volunteers at my races have almost all of them are former finishers of the CanLakes, as well as they're familiar with the course and as well as familiar with the ultras mentality. And so they, like John said, you know, they can tell what you need, what you don't, you know, just whatnot. So I'll express them their gratitude from you guys again. So John, did you have, okay, so your goal was 4:30. So did you follow the watch? Or are you
Yeah,
stuff?
I usually try to keep as consistent of a pace as I can. And in a race like this, it's a little more challenging because the terrain does kind of vary much more. So I've done 50K road races before, but they were generally flat for the most part. So it was pretty easy to kind of get a pace that was steady throughout. And with this, we did keep a fairly steady pace, but it would vary. We'd had a couple places where you would have a downhill and we were really going fast, and then it would kind of go around the corner and then you're going uphill again. And it balanced out pretty nice. But overall, like I said, right up until we hit Middlesex right there, we kept a pretty steady pace going, and it was, it was pretty consistent, and it was, like I said, it was awesome to have someone there both to push and to just to be there, and to kind of keep you going and keep you settled so that you don't go too fast and too slow. And it was actually a pretty good experience with that.
Mhm. So before the race, did you study the course, or did you just fling it? Or
So I was familiar with the area before the race. I was familiar with especially the first part down near Naples and everything. I've gone down there several times. And then the rest of the course I was somewhat familiar with too from riding. I like to ride. I've tried to make it where I ride around the lakes. So I've ridden around Canandaigua Lake before. Now the one part, once we got to the top of the hill at Middlesex and made the turn, that was a new section for me. So I wasn't familiar with that. The only thing I knew was that it was going to be hilly. But I didn't know those were new roads for me there. But in general, the area, I was familiar with it going into it. So it wasn't too many surprises.
yeah. There's a trivia answer question that one of those offshoots of when you go up the hill from Middlesex, then you turn left.
Mhm.
And one of those roads, when it turns left, it features a road which there's a visual, there's a thing that you seem like that your car is rolling uphill, so or a stream is going uphill. It was featured in one of the YouTube videos,
Mhm.
um, like that. So yeah, Amy, did you study the race course before you did, or just did you fling it?
I did not study it at all. I was told by a friend that, it's hilly. So I just kind of kept that in mind. But like I said, I'm really glad John was there because it was kind of comforting to know that, like, I don't know. I just was like, it just was comforting to have someone there to be like, well, if I do go the wrong turn, I'm sure John will be like, other way. But it was marked so well that there was honestly, there was no way of getting lost because it was marked so well too. So for someone who didn't look at the course at all, it was very easy to just follow.
Very good. So how long did it take for you to recover after this race? Usually for me, I'm sore for after every ultra, I'm sore for a week or so. Maybe.
So I was not actually as sore as I thought I would be. I felt pretty good, but I thought that I should probably give my body a rest. So I took 5 days off and then I started running again. So I'm running right now.
What did
Yeah,
you do?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
No,
John.
go ahead. I was gonna say it took the next day I was a little bit sore and I didn't run for a couple days, but I kind of, by the end of the week I did a run, and then I ended up doing a marathon yesterday. But
Marathon is official marathon or just
yeah, I did the well, it used to be called the Empire State. What do they call it now? The Great New York State Marathon, right out here where I live. So, and it's a hilly race for a marathon, but after doing CanLake, nothing. This wasn't that bad.
all right. So, how did you heard about Canned Lakes and what prompted you to sign up? I think John, you kind of mentioned that it was in your bucket list for a while.
Yeah, so it was one of the ones when I first started doing marathons, and I hadn't done this. I didn't do ultras until a couple years ago, but I noticed this race, and it was, again, being in an area that I'd love to come to. It was on my list of things to do, but admittedly I didn't. It was the 50 mile was the first thing I saw, and I'm familiar with the other 19 miles that we didn't run in this race, including Bopple Hill, and getting up the nerve to want to try to do this. I figured I'd start with the 50K and just go with that and work my way up. So I came across it from, I'd heard about it from other people that have run races, and again, some of the people I saw at CanLake are people I've come across at, whether it's the other ultras, Mind the Ducks or Candlelight or other races in the area. And the one thing I got from a lot of people was that CanLake was, it was a difficult race, but it was a beautiful race and it was worth doing. And it was very, was definitely worth looking to do. So that's how it got on my radar.
Amy?
So I was looking to do something a little bit shorter, like a month before that I did my the 50-miler race. And so actually one of my friends that I run with in my running club was like, "Oh, I did the CanLake 50-miler." And I was like, "Well, I don't want to do the 50." And he's like, "Well, you can do the 50K." So he actually told me about it and said it was like a really good opportunity and a good race, and that it was well stocked, especially in the stations were really well done. And so I was like, all right, I'll sign up for that. So then I just ended up signing up for that, and it was a blast.
Yeah. Very, very good. Speaking of hills, by the way, just like if you're talking about Bopple Hill, and like you're scared, John, to go going Bopple Hill. When I mean, I have to confess, I run this race in 2012 myself, so I finished 50 mile. Bopple Hill did not bother me at all because it seemed like psychologically that everybody was psyched up that there's going to be Bopple Hill. You kind of run up to it reserved, you go up, and then you say, "Oh, this was it," and then you continue.
Yeah.
But really, where it's like if you go up to 50-mile course, actually, the hills what you mentioned, my hill that bugged me the most on 50-miler was the out of Middlesex. That hill, like I remember coming out of the aid station, like within a couple hundred yards when we start going up, and I'm looking at this house and these steps, I'm thinking like, those are so inviting to go and sit down and rest for a while. But there was a ditch, which I'm thinking like I would have to go through this ditch at least twice, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. I'm going out that. So that was say in 50-mile course that Apple Hill was not that thing. And it's interesting how you mentioned about other thing what you mentioned about seafood diet.
Yes.
Certainly have. I mean, I remember seeing that term many years ago by somebody like not a seafood as a fish or anything else, but look at the aid station, what looks good, take it. And that has happened to me and pretty much no others. It's some foods which you think you're gonna eat does not go down at all. But you kind of look at it like for example, I rarely drink Coke or during the days in day-to-day life. But Coke is not at all, but Coke is something which is like looks so appealing at all. So just you can't get enough. So
Yes.
anyway, just tell us about your background, overall running background, how you get into running, what what races you have done before. John have some other experience. So for Amy, it was the first one. So Amy, we'll start with you. Tell us more about how you get into running and ultras.
Yeah, so I think I've been running basically since I've been in high school, college. I ran for college. I ran for Damon College, and I only got to do, well, 5Ks, but 10K was always my favorite, which was the longest distance. So then when I graduated, I was like, I want to do all the longer stuff. So I did a marathon in Tucson, and my first marathon, and I qualified for Boston. And then I did Boston, and that was super fun. And then after I did Boston, I did a Toledo marathon, which is in April, and I did that last April. I did that marathon. So that was super fun. And then when COVID hit in 2020, that's when I did the 40-miler, the FKT, and I just was like, wow, that was really fun. Like, I think maybe longer is better for me, or like I think I should really like get into this. So I decided to sign up for Tunnel Hill, and then thought this would be a good ultra to kind of start off with.
So you're at the beginning of your ultra journeys, seem like.
Yes, I'm definitely at the beginning. I'm definitely learning. I don't have a lot of experience, so I'm taking in, and learning from other people. But yeah, so far, I'm very new in this.
Okay, very good. John, I have heard your story a few times, but for guys who are watching this interview for the first time, why don't you tell more about your journey?
Yeah, so I started running back in high school, did track, did, middle distance and distance. I was had that weird combination of where I did like the 800 meters and triple jump and long jump and then like the longer distances. But I did that for a few years and then I ran in college. And then after that, I kind of dropped off of running for about 10 years or so. I mean, it's not that I didn't run, but I, didn't really do any races or anything for a while. And then about 10 years ago was when I started getting back into running again. And it started with the shorter runs, the 5Ks, the 10Ks, a couple years in, a half marathon, then the marathons. But it wasn't until 2019 where I did my first ultra. And again, that was, talking with some people. So one gentleman I've seen at a lot of races, Bob Haas, he, talking with him, he was, telling me how he was getting into those now. And as you get older, actually, you lose the speed and everything, but the endurance tends to kind of stick with you. So the ultra is a good way to transition in to keep going. And so, I remember the first ultra I did was Mind the Ducks. And I actually did that because I felt that was a very safe one to do, because I knew no matter how far I ran, I was always never going to be more than, a mile away from, or really a half mile away from my aid station and people. So, and that went well, and that I've been hooked ever since. So I've done a few more of those timed races, the Mind the Ducks, the overnights, 6 hour, 12 hour, and a few trail races, Finger Lakes 50s, and a couple of road races. But now I seem to be more into the longer runs and the ultra runs. That's, I'm almost want to say addicted to them, but they're very fun to do. I find the atmosphere at them is incredible. The people you meet at them are very friendly. They're very encouraging, whether you're talking to someone who's, gonna run like the 50 mile in 5 hours, 5 hours there, like I think Peter was there, or someone who's just there and, it might take them 24 hours to do, that kind of distance. They're all the same in terms of how friendly they are, how encouraging they are, and it's just an incredible, scene to be around, an incredible group of people, and it's very supportive. So no matter what your goals are, there's always people there that are very encouraging, and that's what keeps me kind of very interested in it. So that's pretty much what I mostly do now. I do occasional shorter races and snowshoe races and things like that, but it's mostly longer ones like the marathons and above.
Mhm. Very good. So what's your training schedule for this one overall? Just how often you train? What's your weekly mileage? Do you do hills, intervals? Do you have personal trainers? Do you cross train? So John, I'll start with you and then
Okay.
Amy.
So my schedule can vary. It depends on between work and everything else going on, but it's the similar to what I talked about before from Mind the Ducks and Candlelight. Is it's, a lot of people think that to do these kind of races, you got to be putting in 50 miles, 100 miles a week, and it's really not the case. I mean, for the most part, I'm usually doing 20 to 30 miles a week, sometimes 40, but usually 20 to 30 is what I'm getting in. So I do try to do, one run that involves hills, and usually that's a trail run around here, a couple runs on the roads. And one thing I've sprinkled in more this year is weight training. And I found that that's actually been very helpful with the hills. I've done probably better than I've ever done on races with those kind of things because of the weight training. And, that's, something that was fairly new to me, but it's been very helpful. So that's what I do, but it's really not a high mileage thing. It's, it's getting a couple runs a weekend. And when the weather's nice, maybe try to get another activity in, like riding the bike, but.
Mhm. So I'm glad, I mean, you're basically training more like an overall athlete, not with some running involved, seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Amy?
So my usual training is I like high mileage. I kind of thrive off high mileage. So, kind of during COVID, I got up to like almost 90 miles and I was like, I think I just do well with high mileage. So generally I just do high mileage in general. I didn't get super high up to the ultra just because I was still getting back into it from my Achilles. Um, I wish I could say I cross train. I don't really. I love to swim and I did swim a lot when I had an Achilles injury, so I thought that was really helpful. And I'm still going to continue to swim because I find that so therapeutic. So instead of even doing like a second run, because I love to do double runs, I love to do a run in the morning and then in the afternoon. But I'm trying to like be okay with the idea of like just swimming instead for the second one, just because I think it's so good for your body. And then I just do training wise, like I do a lot of core exercises is like the big thing. And I focus in on my like hips and my hamstrings and obviously my Achilles, because I know those are like my weaker areas.
So you do some cross training, you're just not really calling that out. So if you swim and if you do core and all that stuff, so that's more than a lot of other runners, including myself, which I have slacked off when I was running more actively. So very good. So now don't, I doubt that you're both professional runners. So I'm just curious, what do you do for a living overall? If you could share.
Mhm. So I work at Upstate Medical University. I'm an assistant director with the Environmental Services Department here. So we oversee, the cleaning staff that cleans and disinfects throughout all the 27 buildings on campus, as well as the linen staff um here as well. So I've been here for about 12 and a half years now, and these are the people who actually encouraged me to get back in the running. And it's an incredible group of people that's been very supportive, and quite honestly, without their encouragement, I wouldn't have gotten back in the running. And then they've kept pushing me, and between them and my family and my close friends, they've been the ones that have really made this possible and made encourage me to make it be more than just something that I used to do. It's something that I do. They know it's something I love to do, and that's and I appreciate that. But it's the group I work with is an incredible group of people, and it's that support system is amazing.
Very good, Amy.
So I work in Buffalo, New York. I am the program director of a social work unit at the Erie County Bar Association Assigned Counsel Program. It's a super long name. But basically, I have a social work unit in a public defense setting, is kind of just to give people the idea. So I work with criminal defense attorneys, and I work directly with I oversee the unit that works with their clients directly. So I'm an LMSW. I have my license in social work, and then I'm actually in my last year, I'm getting my doctorate in social work at UB. So I just have a couple more months left.
Okay, very good. So besides your professional life and besides love for running, what else you do, for what other hobbies you have or hidden talents or whatnot?
I don't know about hidden talents. I think I've mentioned before that I'll start singing out song lyrics sometimes during some of these races. I don't think I did during this one.
I didn't hear you.
Yeah,
No.
so if you ever do any of the time race, like the Mind the Ducks or the Candlelight 12 hour, at some point during the day or the night, I will start, kind of singing out different songs. I'll usually think there's no one around me, but there ends up being someone who inevitably sees it. But yeah, again, like I said, a very supportive group and friendly people, so no one really judges there. Other than that, I mean, I'm a big sports fan. I in high school I played football, I did track, I did swimming. In college, I did the cross country and tennis. So it's a little bit of everything. And I still enjoy doing the sports even to this day and going to sporting events. Trying to think if there's any other really no other hidden talents. I mean, I think I've mentioned before that I love history, and a lot of the areas I go running in, I like to go to areas with historical significance and run by a lot of things, because it's always kind of very interesting to, run next to something and think about how, it used to be 200 years ago, this was a mill, or there was boats going along this canal or whatever. I mean, other than that, I think I also have the largest selection of novelty socks that I wear for running these races. I think for CanLakes, I wore my Harry Otter socks again, which are special ones to me because I always seem to do well when I wear those. So, but that's, I guess, one thing. If you can always tell if I'm at a race, you can, I'm the guy with whether it's the Charlie Brown socks or the Calvin and Hobbes, or this weekend I did the Beavis and Butthead socks. So I guess that's my thing. So
Very good, Amy.
I'm disappointed that you didn't sing because I would have loved that during the race. Honestly, I thought that would be so fun. I love to sing. I'm a terrible singer, but I love to sing as well. So I would have enjoyed some singing. Other than kind of just, I love all sports. I really do. I like to watch sports. I collect mugs for fun. So I'm obsessed. I'm kind of a coffee addict, which I think most runners are. I have a whole coffee collection. So any place I go to, I get a coffee mug. So any place I travel to, any place I go to, I get a coffee mug. And I'm staring at my collection actually right now that probably needs to get its own little cabinet for, because it's getting a little too much. And then I really like to bake and read as well. So I love to bake. I haven't been doing much of it, but it's a stress reliever for me for sure. And obviously I love to learn. I love learning new things, especially when it comes to running, or just I love hearing people's stories and like how they do things. And I'm just very curious in general.
So just FYI, Mind the Ducks, one of the swags is a dated mug, coffee mug that you get at that one.
yes.
So
just I'm gonna have to do that now.
Yeah. So if John would break in a song, what kind of songs you would appreciate from him breaking into?
Honestly, anything. I mean, I like pop. I like all music, and that's like the weird thing is because some people will see my playlist and they're like, you have like High School Musical on there, but then you also have like rap. So I like everything, honestly. I guess the only thing I don't really like is like screamo. But other than that, I will listen to anything. So I grew up with a mom who sang basically everything, like our chores, and would be like, you need to go clean up this. Like she would sing in song for everything. So I like any songs.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Anyway, so now that you have these seasons behind you, just what's next for you as far as what's your plan? Amy, you said you're preparing for a 50-miler?
Yeah, so Tunnel Hill 50 miler in Illinois. And then I'm gonna do Boston in April.
Have you thought about running other ultras? Well, obviously Minor Ducks, but besides Minor Ducks.
I don't know which one I want to do. I think I might want to do one after I do my marathon in April, like more the summer kind of. Which I don't know if is super ideal because it's so hot, but I'm thinking about doing something along those lines. And then I'd like to do one in the fall, just like I did this time around.
Very good, John.
So I'll be probably doing a few more marathons and all upcoming. I did qualify for Boston, so I'll be doing my first Boston in April too. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I'll be doing a few other races in the spring and all. I'd like to do a few of the trail races. So I'll do there's a trail race down Naples way that the Muddy Sneaker that I usually do, and it's a shorter one, but it's as hilly as it would seem it would be. And I'll do a few of the trail races upcoming, next year too. I'll probably do Finger Lakes 50 again. I'll probably do Twisted Branch again. But I'll be looking for one or two marathons out of the area to do. Haven't decided yet. I know there's a few on the radar that I'd like to do, but it's, just have to kind of see what's out there and decide. I might go, there's one in Pennsylvania, Gettysburg, actually, which kind of goes around the area, including through part of it through the battlefield area that I'd like to do. Might not do it next year because it'll be so close to Boston and Mind the Ducks, but I'll pick a couple of those kind of races. But I think the only other thing that might vary is I may look to do some snowshoe races again in the winter too. I find them to be actually kind of fun. They can be challenging, but they're fun. There's a few of them around that I've found that I like to do. So
Cole Crosby, who is a current CanLake's 50-mile record holder, he's a big in snowshoeing. So he is, and he does what he said about snowshoeing, what very helps in running, that it works your core more than any other, maybe like aerobic exercise. So that's
it was the first time I did one of those. It was an eye opener to say the least. It was I was more sore after that than I've been after marathons. So
yeah, very good. Well, thank you, Amy. Thank you, John, for your time, for giving this interview about your experience at CanLake, and congratulations again for winning the 50K. Hope you're gonna come back to CanLake again for maybe shooting for 50-miler, and as well as Mind the Ducks and Candlelights. And I recently announced that we worked out a deal that we might have a first 25-hour race in Western New York. I think there's a one in Syracuse, but truly in Western New York, we might have a first 24-hour race next year on a Candlelight third weekend of July. So anyway, thanks again for your time, and see you around.
Thank you for a
Thank
great
you.
race.
Thank you.